Welcome back, everyone. Draft season is upon us. The title gives it away. In this video, I will be covering the top 103 wide receivers for the 2025 NFL season. It is the most degenerate, sicko, perfect rankings anywhere on the internet. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shawn. I've worked in the NFL, college football, and I'm here to help you win championships. So let's lock in. Number one, chalk as can be, Jamarr Chase. He was amazing last season in a high passing volume offense. The defense is supposed to be bad once again this year. Burrow is still there. They throw the ball a tremendous amount in the red zone and near the end zone as well. Jamarr led the NFL in end zone targets. He's an absolute demon with the ball in his hands. Now, is it possible that one of the other guys is able to place ahead of him and be the number one receiver this year? Of course. But from all the information we have, he's the best bet to finish first among wide receivers this season. Number two, CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott is healthy again this season. He's getting there in age. There are some moderate line concerns, but I have them around league average, maybe slightly below average as a line, which Dak, who's more of a stationary passer than what he's been for the early part of his career, there are some concerns there, but they add George Pickens. I think it releases some attention and pressure off of CeeDee to be the sole focal point of the offense. I think this defense is going to be pretty bad in Dallas, especially if they don't get the Micah Parsons situation sorted out. And in the last season that CeeDee had a healthy Dak Prescott, there's some late start issues. This is in 2023. So this is points, snap share. Look at these targets, yards. He is as consistent, dominant as it gets. These are touchdowns. I wish they could bring these down. He was as dominant as could be with Dak Prescott as the wide receiver one. He could easily finish as that with Dak again this season, but there is a little bit of risk with Dak's health. Number three, Justin Jefferson. He gets a new quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. And Kevin O'Connell offenses have been top 6 in this league for many years. He's had some injury concerns. He has a hamstring. He's been a top option for many years. I think J.J. McCarthy will be a better quarterback for real life than Sam Darnold. We'll see as a quintessentially a rookie whether they'll let J.J. really cook like that. They brought in Jordan Mason as well. I see the Minnesota Vikings defense as one of the better defenses in the league, probably about top 10. So that'll limit some of the extreme passing volume. There are also a lot of mouths to feed, but from a pure talent perspective, Justin Jefferson, 1,400, 1,600, 1,800. These are crazy historic numbers that he's put up. But because of the offense, the defense, a little bit more of a run-heavy environment, that's what puts him at third for me between these different guys. Going down to tier 2, number 4, Nico Collins. The one caveat with Nico as a first-round pick is that he's had injury issues. He had a hamstring last year. The offensive line for CJ Stroud is not very good, but he's managed in the per game in the games that Nico Collins played. He's putting up real serious numbers, but there are some concerns with the team, the line. Draft Sharks in their injury model has him as one of the higher injury risks among the first round guys because hamstrings are just very scary in general. But when he's had an opportunity, he's been a very good wide receiver, and he's certainly worth that consideration. And there's still room for development. They brought in a bunch of guys in the draft. They traded for Christian Kirk. Like CeeDee Lamb, I think this takes some of the pressure off that they can't just key in on him exclusively and feel free to blitz Stroud. And there's room for development in Stroud's game as well. So for all of those factors, amazing wide receiver, but he's tier 2 for me. And the injuries, keep that in mind. Number 5, Puka Nacua. Now this is slightly controversial given that Matthew Stafford is having some back issues. Puka Nacua is very heavily involved in manufactured touches, in screens. I think Jimmy G would relatively maintain his value. Puka in limited time as a pro has absolutely produced. He did miss time. There are some injury concerns. But these numbers, you cannot deny how much of a focal point. They did bring in Davante Adams, which the one caveat for Puka's game is that the red zone marks, he wasn't used very heavily in the red zone. And Davante would certainly take that away. But I think he's as independent of the general offensive environment. Their defense should be pretty solid. I don't think they're elite per se, but sort of middle of the road. Although they do have some really good pass rush options. Jared Verse, they totally nailed that pick. But Puka has been really, really good. This was his last full healthy season. He was wide receiver 4. So I think he'll still be fine. Now there's definitely reason and pushback to potentially lower him, but he's still an elite option for me. Whether it's Jimmy G or another fun option, or if Stafford could also be healthy and ready for week 1. So there's still that possibility has to be baked into the price. Number 6, have to monitor his hamstring, but on a per route and efficiency basis, A.J. Brown is an absolute complete dog. The hamstring is a concern. The volume offense is really questionable, but he still is putting up crazy numbers. No matter how you slice it, man, zone, yards per route run, efficiency, this guy could arguably be the number 1 receiver in all of football. The Eagles will get a slightly harder schedule. The team is still as elite as can be. Maybe losing Landon Dickerson and Mekhi Becton might orient them to try to throw the ball a little more. The defense is still going to be good, but maybe losing Slay and others might not make them elite, so they'll have to throw at least a decent bit. Jalen Hurts was breaking records in terms of low volume in 2023 when they had to throw a bit more. I mean, these are just ridiculous numbers. He's only 28 years old. Pretty consistent with target volume. Nothing really changes in the room. It's a very consolidated room, and he was also hurt last year, and he came back strong. That has to matter as well. So I just think he's so talented. Early second-round pick and someone I'm definitely targeting. Number 7, Brian Thomas Jr. had a brilliant rookie season. He's had some in-and-out camp issues in terms of just these minor little nicks and stuff, but I think he'll be fine. I think he's one of the main beneficiaries of Liam Cohen coming in there. It'll be a more creative offense. He's one of the best receivers with the ball in his hands. The benefit of having a really good play caller is getting those situations where he's open and he has green grass to run through. And this second half of the year, where he was absolutely a monster. That's partially from rookie development. You'll see that when I talk about McConkey later. The concern is that, maybe that's from Mac Jones. Trevor Lawrence was hurt last year. That's where a lot of this production came from. But Trevor Lawrence is way better than Mac Jones. I'm not worried about that. He's clearly one of the better receivers in the league. Travis Hunter will take some of the targets, and there might be some week-to-week inconsistency, which puts him number 7 amongst this list and not as a tier 1 option. The offensive line is a bit of a concern. They were definitely bad last year. I think on a pass blocking basis, I think they'll at least be serviceable, and some of the Liam Cohen play action screens will at least take the pressure off where they're not in these true pass sets where it's just Trevor Lawrence dropping back, I think the line is a little more concerning for the running backs. And while Travis Hunter is awesome, Brian Thomas is still the man in this offense. I don't think the defense is going to be that good. So they'll have to throw a decent bit. The front seven is pretty good, but it's going to be not an elite unit. They're definitely going to have to throw the ball. And this is an offense-first team. Number 8, Malik Nabers, all-world talent. I'm a bit more of a believer in Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart than maybe some other people are. For fantasy, it's a bit frustrating that you don't know who's really going to be the guy. So outside of Superflex or maybe the late of a best ball draft, it's very hard to invest in those guys. But from Malik's standpoint, he was the leader in the National Football League in expected fantasy points, which is basically how many targets you're getting, what area of the field you're getting it in. He's getting end zone targets, red zone targets. You look at this column is the number of targets, and it's green basically every week that he plays. The room is effectively the same. They did bring in Scatabo, but that is just minor in terms of more targets, a few more targets underneath. It's a clear hierarchy where he's the main guy. He's not practicing. That's a bit of a concern. The offense is a bit of a concern. They actually have a really good front seven. Their pass rush is absolutely electric. Coming from a Michigan guy, fan, Abdul Carter is absolutely elite. And that's to go with their other elite pass rushers that they already have there. So if they're able to throw the ball, the line isn't very good for the guys, but they dealt with this last year, and Malik Nabers was fine. And from a usage standpoint alone and a talent standpoint alone, he's only 22 years old. You could easily finish as a wide receiver 1. Definitely a risky option, but the upside is definitely there. He's super, super talented. Number 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You change from Ben Johnson to John Morton. I still think this team will be fine. The defense is very good. It was last year. And I think there might be a bit of a power switch in terms of the weapons in the offense. I think Jameson Williams will take just a little bit. Amon-Ra was already not used as heavily as some of the other options in the offense. He had, I believe, the less expected fantasy points than Cortland Sutton, than Jakobi Meyers. But the fact of the matter is that Amon-Ra St. Brown is a very good wide receiver. He outperforms his expected fantasy points. That's more sticky and more important for wide receivers because they have to actually earn targets. A running back can just be used a lot and not be necessarily an amazing player, but because they have an amazing role, they can still maintain their value. But for a receiver, if Amon-Ra was mid or just a Ben Johnson spam target, then they would throw it to Jameson Williams. They'd throw it to Sam Laporta. They'd run the ball more. But Amon-Ra is a very good and talented wide receiver. I just think the usage is going to be slightly in favor of the other guys. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in the room, and that's what bumps him down for me. But he's still a very good player, and there's a bit of inconsistent usage with Amon-Ra, which is mostly a product of the defense being good, and there's just a lot of other guys. And he did have that knee concern earlier in the season, or in the offseason, but he seems to be fine, but that has to factor in a little bit when you're considering these elite wide receiver ones. As kind of a theme for these first 10, 11 guys is that this wide receiver 1 group is really, really strong. And getting 1 or 2 of these guys is great. And then figuring it out at some of the other positions. That's kind of how I view it from a strategy standpoint. But at least a hero of these elite guys. But Amon-Ra's usage is a bit inconsistent. More fitting for best ball. But as someone who's a slot-heavy target guy, it is quite annoying to see 7 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets. So that's something to keep in mind. Number 10, Drake London. First 2 years of his career was very frustrating with awful QB play. Then they started putting him in the slot more. He's one of the best receivers from the slot. Darnell Mooney is hurt right now. There was something about they're talking about, let's see if they have it on Sleeper. They might not have it, but they were talking about like week to week. He's confident it'll be this year. That is like a really big red flag. But essentially early in the season when it was Kirk Cousins back there, the intermediate usage between London and Mooney was really bad. That's where London is really good. That's something where Michael Penix, with a good offensive line, especially pass blocking and run blocking, if they could protect Michael Penix, he can throw the ball. It's just that when Penix is under pressure, we saw it in the national championship game against Michigan. When he's under pressure, he's more of a pedestrian guy. If he's protected, he's a very good player. Think like a Sam Darnold on steroids type of guy. But he'll sling it. He loves Drake London. All of the reports with London are that he is just loved by Michael Penix especially. It fits the mold of London wants to get downfield a little bit more. In these late season games with Michael Penix, he was used a lot. He gets a lot of end zone usage. He's a talented player, 24 years old, wide receiver 5, wow, in PPR last year. A lot of targets, a lot of usage. There is some inconsistency, but this is more on the Kirk Cousins side. I think Penix is going to make London a great receiver play here. Number 11, Tyreek Hill. There's a lot of concerns with some of the offseason stuff. He's on streams. He seems to be a bit disengaged with the team. There's bad vibes with the team. Mike McDaniel looks frustrated, but the thing with Tyreek Hill, he's easily the riskiest pick at this price, is that you're getting potentially PPR 2, 2, 6, 2, 1, 8. He's been top 8 6 times. And even with a broken wrist, he was still 18th as a receiver. He's might be the best receiver in the entire National Football League. He had 1,800 yards and 1,700 yards. Yes, the offensive line is in rough shape. I think Austin Jackson had a training camp injury. If Patrick Paul and Jonas Savaiinaea don't develop, it's going to be a rough slate for Tua to stay healthy. But Tua has one of the fastest time to throws in the league, so he kind of tries to make it work, especially when you have Tyreek and Waddle. You lose Jonnu Smith in a trade, which opens up some targets. I think HN will snag most of the value of that, but it'll at least shift it in his direction. He'll have a functional wrist. That has to matter, but there are a lot of concerns with, yes, an oblique injury. He's doing all this kind of stuff. So this is a risk reward. He's closer to the end of the wide receiver tier. It's really ideal to get one of the top 10 guys, but the upside is undeniable. If you're not first, you're last kind of mentality, this is a Ricky Bobby type of pick. But the talent's undeniable. He's an amazing player. Say what you want about his personality. Number 12, Ladd McConkey. Yes, they signed Keenan Allen. Yes, they drafted Trey Harris. Yes, they lost Rashawn Slater. That's a lot of negative FUD. For a player that did what Ladd McConkey did, including, I believe he has a Chargers playoff record. He had 97 yards in that playoff game. He was just simply awesome. The team knows how to use him. He's still the number 1 guy. He was one of the leaders, if not the leader, in yards per route run from the outside. He's an inside-outside guy. Like a JSN in Seattle, I think they'll make it work with Keenan and Ladd McConkey. That's kind of the down south version of JSN and Cooper Kupp. I prefer McConkey and Keenan over that. And Justin Herbert is an excellent quarterback. There's some degree of target inconsistency. He's already dealt with that. He wasn't a crazy volume guy. 112 targets for the number 13 guy. That is elite efficiency to get 1,100 yards. He's an amazing yak guy. The defense isn't supposed to be great. They lost Joey Bosa. So they'll be like middle of the pack. I think they're going to have to throw the ball with Najee's concern. Of course, they want to run the ball, but I think it'll be a bit of a extended run game, aka easy pass targets, that Lad will be just fine. I'm not dooming as hard. I think he's still a late second round pick. I think he goes where he should. Then number 13, down a tier. From 12 down, this is kind of a riskier in terms of usage and crash out. This is where it's a tough zone. I think that JSN is just a really talented player. Michigan guy. You'll hear me say it a million times as you watch this channel. Michigan guy. But when it was JSN, Garrett Wilson, Olave, I think JSN was just the receiver that was feared. And that came to fruition once he's free of the curse of the Shane Waldron rookie-hating offense. He's just the man in Seattle. They traded DK Metcalf. They signed Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's had a rough few years. If you look at the last few Cooper Kupp years, I think he's in a Keenan supporting role. I think they're basically the same. Cooper Kupp used to be the man, but he's going to a rival. They let him go. They could have retained him probably. There's always creative ways to work around the cap, so that says something to me that Cooper Kupp is a bit of a concern, but he goes in like the 50s. So I was almost going to type JSN, but the search function doesn't really work like that, does it? JSN gets a lot of usage. There's a bit of inconsistency. The line is definitely a concern, but with some of the routes that JSN wins on, he wins in the short and underneath routes. That's going to be fine for what he is able to do. I think Sam Darnold isn't going to be able to sling it downfield. Torrey Horton's a really fun option, but I think that's more of just a best ball type of play. JSN is just the guy. I mean, we were getting 10 for 83. He's just going to be the guy working underneath, getting quick passes, accumulating targets, accumulating yards. He was 9th in PPR scoring. He's in year 3. I just think he's the safest bunch in this group. In an offense that's going to be decent, the Seattle defense is actually going to be pretty good. So the volume won't be crazy like some of these other teams where they just have to throw the ball. And if you're looking ahead at the playoffs, Carolina's not a very good defense. And that spells good for Week 17, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So of this tier, that's slightly gross, but they're still good players. He's the guy, the main guy for me. Number 2, Tet McMillan. He's a little underrated. I'm personally happy that he dropped that pass in the end zone from Bryce Young, which showed as elite anticipation. That's probably perhaps the number one skill if you watch some of these like QB School, the Kurt Warner's channel, Ben Kurt. You see these guys, and like one of the most important things from translating a college quarterback to the next level is anticipation. So from that standpoint, Bryce Young looks pretty good. The defense is not supposed to be very good in Carolina. The offensive line is very good, just good across the board. They heavily invest in this offensive line. Tet McMillan was a top 10 pick as a wide receiver. Travis Hunter went ahead of him, but in a mixed role. Tet McMillan is the unquestioned number 1 receiver in this offense. I'm not a believer in this Carolina defense, so they're going to have to throw the ball a good amount. Ted is the main guy who's productive as a prospect. Pure X receiver. He showed chemistry with Bryce Young already. As a rookie, you see some of these other guys. The rookie development is definitely fast for modern wide receivers. There are guys to take some of the pressure off, and it's mostly a belief in Bryce Young as a top 10 pick. You see where some of these guys are going in the proximate season with Ladd, with Brian Thomas, and they didn't get the level of draft capital and emphasis, especially you consider the defense that Carolina has. They easily could have used that pick on another position, but they chose to go with Tet because they believe in him. And they're going to use him. He's going to get a ton of targets. He's someone I'm definitely looking at in leagues. Number 15, one of the riskier picks on the board. Marvin Harrison, very talented player. Maybe Will Johnson in practice will push him to greatness, as they fought each other in college a lot and matched up against each other. I just don't see the offense necessarily changing a ton where Marv absolutely cooks. It is normal for the receiver. It's the modern era with Nabers and the other guys in his class that really pushed him. Obviously, have him behind those guys, but year one, I mean, PPR 30 wasn't a disaster, but certainly from where he was getting drafted over, it wasn't a great scene. Now, in year two leap is obviously very possible. There's a hierarchy in the offense with Trey McBride being the main target getter. They want to feature James Conner a lot. I think the defense isn't going to be fantastic. They're more like middle of the road, so they'll have to throw the ball a lot. This is a projected top 10 offense in Arizona, and there could be some shift in his favor, at least in the red zone. He got stronger this offseason. I think the red zone in that sort of like Davante Adams type of a lot of touchdowns. Maybe he's a lower yard guy. That's where I think 8 touchdowns his rookie year. Maybe he's a 1,114 touchdown guy. I think that's really where he can thrive, because for some reason, Trey McBride, who he's competing with targets, 8 expected touchdowns last year, only had 2, only had 3, only had 1. And that was something he struggled with in college. But look at all of these nice targets. But I think Harrison could be the absolute red zone guy, especially if the line declines slightly, which I see. It's not going to be as easy living for James Conner as it was and for Kyler Murray to run. I'm not heavily overreacting to the bad preseason performance, but it is a risky pick, and that's why he's more of a wide receiver too. But the talent is definitely there. You could definitely pay off someone who you could be drafting 10 next year, or you're drafting 25. So that's why we're settling on 15. Number 16, Davante Adams. He's probably the person hoping Matt Stafford is healthy. He has crashed down on Jimmy G, but he's still a good player. The offense definitely goes down, but this range gets a little like wonky. But because of his red zone prowess, and he did, I mean, look at all these last seasons. He is getting older. That's a concern for injuries, but he's been doing it pretty good for a long time, and we're betting on him lower than what he has been. Now, they like to run the ball to Kyren Williams at the goal line. It's very much a run-blocking line. The pass block line is supposed to be a bit of an improvement. There's concern with Alaric Jackson, but he needs to have Matthew Stafford there to really cook on price. So that's something I would watch extremely closely, but he's still a target getter, still a target earner. In the red zone, he's definitely that guy, and certainly a talented player, and it's a better situation than New York was, largely speaking. I mean, he certainly doesn't love necessarily being with Jimmy G, but if Matthew Stafford is fine, he might bump him up a couple spots from here, but he's certainly a tough player to evaluate because touchdowns are such a big part of his game, but his upside is very real, and he certainly cooked in the playoffs. Number 17, someone that I'm lower on than most people, T. Higgins. He was the best ball hero last year, but if you look at the film in this sort of very famous elite game, he cooked the absolute living crap out of Riley Moss, who's not very good. Yeah, you see the Denver Broncos, but Pat Surtain was on Jamarr Chase, and he was cooking essentially a not very good corner. Something that I'm trying to emphasize on this channel for matchups and more like weekly and in-season stuff is who are they going up against? Because in order for a wide receiver to do well, the offense has to choose him to target him. He's obviously still the number 2 behind Jamarr Chase, and the corner who's guarding him has to make a mistake. So in the past couple years, T has missed time. He's missed 5 games twice. He is a bit injury prone. And when you're drafting a wide receiver 2, or in some cases a wide receiver 1, you want him to be out there or you're going to not make the playoffs. or you're not going to advance. And that's something where if you look at these total numbers, he's max hit 11, not even 1,100 yards 4 years ago. The offense and the end zone targets and the usage is why he's a wide receiver too. But as an overall season play, this is very frustrating. There's a lot of inconsistency. Now he gets targets here. He's been hurt. He does get targeted, but this production is very high and low. And I think this is one of the things that we're just certainly wrong about, which is that he shouldn't be this like top 10 guy. I just think it's ridiculous. He's a very good receiver. It's a very good passing offense. The defense is going to be bad. They're going to have to throw the ball. I understand that, but where's the results? Where's the results? I mean, I have him at wide receiver 17. That's matching last season, which was a great season by any stretch of the imagination, but he has to stay healthy. He's shown talent, but there's a lot of concern for me. Down to tier 6, George Pickens. He was in a really crash out scenario in Pittsburgh. He's a very talented receiver, one of the best deep receivers in the National Football League. Now Russ is a good deep thrower of the football, but it's a low volume offense. If you look at some of his snap numbers, at least early in the season, it was very inconsistent. He was missing time last year, a few games, but his talent level is much better than this. In a Dallas team with a bad defense, Pittsburgh has an elite defense. It shows the impact of a bad defense where they're going to have to throw a lot. Dallas and Cincinnati, in my eyes, are very similar teams. They lack a very dominant running game. They have a quarterback that could lead the league in passing yards. He either was top 5 or led the league in deep receiving yards, EPA, whatever stat you want to think of. And Dak is one of the best deep passers in the National Football League. So that's why I'm ahead of George Pickens at price at 18. Now, the risk with him is obviously he could crash out, and there's that Tyreek Hill little aspect, but it seems like he's happy. It's understandable when you've put such good film together that you're in a defensive team and your stats don't reflect your talent level. And he's building chemistry with Dak. That's something that's been very notable in camp. He's obviously still the number 2, so there's a bit of capping with the upside with that, but as the number 2 behind CeeDee Lamb, that's a very comfortable position for him, and they're going to throw the ball a lot, and a T. Higgins but more healthy season is certainly within the range of outcomes for George Pickens, but I still have him a tier below. If you look at some of these past results, this is not even T. Higgins level, so that's kind of where I see him. It's a we have T. Higgins at home type of click, but that's why I have T here, and he's here, but they're behind both the established guys of Jamarr Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and then it's T and Pickens. So I have him just like slightly below in both regards. Number 19, Xavier Worthy. Definitely not a Taylor Swift influenced pick. Now, if you're a believer in the NFL script, perhaps you got to bet even harder on Worthy. But in his rookie season, Worthy didn't start off very well, and then he picked it up late. He showed some chemistry also in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So early on, he was not doing very much, but he does get some of the post-bye rookie bump. Now, this is a little bit more of a projection. He's still a rookie, or was a rookie last year, number 33, so projecting a rise. You have the Rashee Rice suspension that's impending. The Kansas City offense is supposed to be one of the top scoring offenses in the National Football League. And he's kind of the beneficiary of Rashee's suspension. And from his profile at Texas as more of a deep threat, he actually got a lot of his work in the underneath areas. And I think with Kelsey being older, he'll still be good, at least relative to a tight end. But I think Worthy will get some of that underneath work. And you could see even a bit more of an even split between the guys. I have him ranked ahead of Rashee Rice because Rice is most likely going to miss 6 games. Maybe it's 4, but from what it sounds like, it's going to be 6. But this is more of a projection of development. And there's certainly risk here. Certainly pretty good in best ball, but late in the season, he was featured more. You got more snaps. You look at the this column is the snap share. He goes from like 50, 60. And late in the season, he gained more trust and chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. Also, Mahomes had some really rough deep throwing numbers last year. And from the talent perspective of who we think Patrick Mahomes is, that could easily positively regress where he's hitting a few more of the deep passes to Xavier Worthy, and that's more fantasy points for us. So that's why I'm pushing him at least a few spots more than what he was last year. Number 20, Mike Evans. I'm slightly nervous, just mostly about the age. He's an injury concern. He had hamstrings last year. His playoff schedule is very good. He gets Miami in the championship weeks. That's why he's so well liked in Dynasty or in Best Ball. Dynasty is a win now kind of asset. Second half of the year, he was really, really strong. He's been very good for a long time. 31's a bit of a concern, but a very talented receiver, very heavily involved in the red zone. Godwin going down is going to be good for his early season numbers. I think he's still a very good wide receiver too. I think age, injuries, these yardage numbers going down a little bit. Emeka Puka, the Tristan Wirfs situation is going to affect Baker, I think, the most, where their offensive line is going to go down significantly if they go from Wirfs to Charlie Heck. That blind side matters a lot, especially for a relatively stationary QB. Baker can scramble and all of that good stuff, but if the offense is affected by the lack of efficiency, you have Puka, perhaps Jalen McMillan gets more usage. I think there's just a lot of mouths to feed, and for that reason, I am slightly down on Evans for his age for that, but he's still an elite red zone guy. Look at all of these touchdowns. It's just, you might see some inconsistency. This part is part of the Mike Evans experience as well. So keep that in mind, but still a very good wide receiver too. Next is DJ Moore. He gets the switch to Ben Johnson from Shane Waldron. It wasn't that long ago that DJ Moore went absolutely off with Justin Fields, who we are pretty sure is not as good of a passer as Caleb Williams. The Caleb haters will come and dunk, whatever. I deal with this stuff every day as a Bears fan, but he put up 1364 and 8 touchdowns, wide receiver 6. He was 16 in PPR last year. This is actually a pretty conservative projection. They have him 22, or that was, I guess, last year. He's put up some pretty big numbers. Maybe not necessarily the slot guy here in the Bears system, but I think the overall offense is going to be better. I think the defense is going to be like middle of the pack, so they'll have to throw the ball. They don't really have necessarily a dominant goal line back unless you're big on like Roshan Johnson gang or Kyle Monangai gang, but there's a lot of targets for Moore, even though they brought in Colson Loveland, they brought in Luther Burden. We're going to see more out of Rome Odunze, who I think is similarly ranked to DJ Moore, but I think he's still the main guy in this offense. He's the safest and most reliable in terms of targets, in terms of usage, but there is some of that, but it's mostly a coaching bet. And the line's going to be a little bit better. We expect Caleb Williams to be better as a passer. He had a pretty rough rookie season, but we don't want to define his career strictly off of that. Number 22, Terry McLaurin. It was an amazing season with Jaden Daniels. Last year, he's currently holding out. I think he's fine at price with the holdout consideration. I think he'll be fine. This 13 touchdown number, obviously that's partially a change in regimes, better management. Jaden Daniels is better. They get Laramie Tunsil, so Jaden will actually be protected better. I'm not a huge believer in this Commander defense, so I think they're going to have to sling it. There's a little bit of concern that you always have with a Jaden Daniels where his build is more slight, so you always have to keep that in mind relative to if Josh Allen was his quarterback or Drake May or someone who's bigger, they can take more hits, relatively speaking. Some of these target numbers a little bit inconsistent. He hit a lot of low probability passes. His XFP was lower among these top options. 29 is a concern. Losing those valuable reps is a concern with Jaden Daniels, but they have enough history together. He's still a nice low-end RB or wide receiver too, but there is inconsistency baked into the price. More of a best ball. You look at, like, you get 125 one day, one game, 19 the next. There's a bit of inconsistency here. They also bring in Deebo Samuel, who will steal some of the work from him, but I think it actually might help some of his efficiency, that the pressure won't be on him to be the absolute dog of this offense. But there's a lot of scoring that's projected here. But there's the holdout concerns. He's 29 years old, so lower wide receiver 2 for me. Number 23, Garrett Wilson. I am definitely very down on him. His Vegas line is not very strong. I think it's below 1,000 yards. Very good run blocking line, very bad pass blocking line, and that signals, and with Justin Fields being a lower volume passer, projected under 3,000 passing yards, this to me projects like a very run heavy offense. Now, the yardage is and targets are what will keep him as a wide receiver 2 option, but the market views him a lot more favorably than I do. This was a very good year last year, but Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields are not the same capable level of passer. I think this Jets defense is going to be pretty strong. That's going to lower the pass volume. The new coaching staff is very run heavy. They want to use 3 guys. They brought in Membu to protect, which will also help Justin Fields, but more as a runner than a passer. There's a lot of inconsistency in terms of the targets, the red zone ability here, but there is a lack of alternate targets. I think that might hurt his efficiency. If they bring in someone else, or if Mason Taylor is just a stud, that'll help him, but there's a lot of inconsistency. I just don't love having to rely on just heavy volume in a really gross offense. If he was on a better team, I'd think more highly of him, but this is just a really rough situation. But he'll get target volume, but this feels like a worse version of like a Seattle, where at least there's Cooper Kupp to take some pressure off JSN. There's a slightly worse defense. New York is a very good defense, and they want to run the ball, and Darnold's going to throw more than Justin Fields. So that's the rationale with Wilson, 23. Number 24, down at tier 7, Rome Odunze. This is very much a projection pick. He was one of the biggest gaps between expected touchdowns and actual touchdowns last year. As I mentioned with DJ Moore, he goes from Shane Waldron to Ben Johnson. As we saw from JSN last year, he goes from 0 to hero, being free from Shane Waldron as a first-round pick. You see these awful numbers from JSN. He goes from 48 to 9. If you look at Odunze, he certainly had some of the rookie issues. He played a lot. He had a lot of opportunities. Caleb was bad. I think that it's just going to be a projection pick where I'm betting on the talent. He was amazing at Washington. You finally get some real coaching. You get a year 2 leap. He's a top 10 pick for a reason. His grades and all of that projected pretty well, but his efficiency on his usage just wasn't there. This is very much a bet on Caleb, the offense, and I think he's going to be the red zone guy. I forgot to mention with the DJ Moore stuff that there's some backfield work for DJ Moore. He could be more of like the Deebo Samuel of this offense, and then he's kind of like the Brandon Ayuk as that like true wide receiver winner, that he could be the main guy. The upside with Rome is crazy, especially if the defense is more like middle of the road, which I'm concerned about. The pass rush is concerning. The run defense is concerning in Chicago. The secondary is awesome, but there's 2 aspects of the defense that I'm worried about. 25, it's funny that he's a young guy, but old, reliable Devonta Smith. He has been hurt. He was hurt last year. He didn't miss a game 2 years ago. So there's some concern there. He's the clear number 2, but when he does play, he's very good. He's been a top 30 option for his whole career. He's a little bit inconsistent with some of the pass volume. Sometimes A.J. Brown is just the man that week. For a best ball format, he's really good. But as your wide receiver 3, we're now down here at 25 as a prime wide receiver 3. I just think the Eagles offense is going to have to pass more. Jalen Hurts had his own injuries. I think he had like a knee, a hip. There's all these little issues with Jalen Hurts last year. And that overall affects the offense. And we're 2 years removed from wide receiver 19. And this was in 13 games as the number 27 option. He's capable of these really big spike weeks. They have a really good playoff schedule. One of the easiest. So I'm targeting these Eagles heavily. So I'm a little bit ahead of market on Davante. 26, Calvin Ridley. Cam Ward just loves him. Ridley's been underrated for a while now. 30 years old. He has a little bit less tread in his tires. He didn't play for a couple years. Or I guess he took a year off from his gambling issues. But he's been a top 30 guy. Cam Ward is a gigantic quarterback upgrade. Cam Ward can sling the ball. There's not really a clear number 2 in this room. Maybe it's Chig. Maybe it's Lockett. Maybe it's Amon-Ra. Maybe it's Xavier Restrepo, which I hope, but it probably not. I just think he's going to get insane levels of target volume. He did pretty well with Mason Rudolph. I think he averaged 84 yards a game was the stat that I saw. And they've shown chemistry. You saw in the preseason game. And they're going to be losing games. I don't think this Tennessee defense is very good. I don't think this team is very good. The line is at least going to be improved enough from a pass blocking standpoint to give Cam Ward time to throw it downfield to Ridley where he can cook at all 3 levels. And he is a talented receiver. He's put up 1,000 the past couple years. He can score in the red zone if this offense is better than what we think. And he's just the guy there. So at wide receiver 26, I think he's an excellent value. Wide receiver 27, another upside kind of guy. There's a real dichotomy in some of these tiers. If you look, like, there's more of like the guys that are the main guys and more reliable. There's more like upside projections with Odunze, with Jameson. So at 27, I'm fine with it. He goes a little earlier in some of these best ball drafts. We saw 1,000 yards from Jameson last year. He's had a lot of, whether it's like injury, suspension. He's still only 24 years old. I think the line is going to be just fine. I think the hierarchy of the offense will tilt slightly in his favor. He has some absolute all-world potential to break any intermediate reception, where that's where he cooks is in the intermediate range. So if Tate Ratledge is who we think he is, who's pretty good but not necessarily as good as Frank Ragnow, I think that Jameson Williams will be like a fun, lesser version of Xavier Worthy in a very good offense. There's more usage late in the year. You see some of these snap shares. There's a bit of inconsistency depending on the defense, but he's getting used quite a bit. I think they're going to have to throw just a little bit more. I think the transition from Ben Johnson to John Morton. Ben Johnson's very much a ball control and possession guy if he has the way he wants it. So I think Jameson Williams can take some of that influence and push it in his favor. So that's why I have him 27, but I'm about at market with him. Number 28, Jalen Waddle. Partially a bet on a potential Tyreek Hill crash out, trade, what have you. He would certainly benefit. Jonnu getting traded opens up some targets. I think Achane will get more of that work, but that is a positive for Jalen Waddle. In the past, he's been a top 15 receiver twice. He's been in and out of the lineup. He's a frustrating guy to have sometimes, but in the wide receiver 3 range, I think he's totally fine. Tua with the bad offensive line and his injury history is certainly a concern, but if Tua is out there, Waddle is certainly going to be featured. Waddle is definitely an injury-prone guy, more of an in-game type of player, but at his price, I think it's pretty good. He is inconsistent. more of a best ball guy, but first season long, he's fine. But if you look at some of these past seasons, he's certainly been able to cook before, but he is a little bit inconsistent. Let's be real, but some of these 171, 129, 106, he certainly has the talent within his range of outcomes, but it is going to be up and down. Number 29, a very contentious player across football, Travis Hunter. 29 might be even a little light for him. I think he's a wide receiver first kind of guy. First of all, the wide receiver extension analysis piece. So what that is essentially if a wide receiver hits, their extension is bigger than a corner's. So in essence, that is our indication as people who are outside buildings in the NFL. That shows that wide receivers are more valuable than corners. So from the team investment, they had to trade a ton of future and current draft capital to get Travis Hunter. They are as invested in him as ever. And if he's able to, if his body is able to handle it, he will play as much as he feels like. And he is a very talented receiver. He's slightly raw, but in a Liam Cohen offense, especially playing the slot, getting some manufactured touches and his ball skills, his contested catch, in an offense that's going to have to pass the ball a bit, in a defense that's not very good, in a team that's probably losing games. Maybe they win games with Liam Cohen and he wins Coach of the Year, but we think that they're going to lose games. So that makes Travis Hunter an exciting option. Now, there's going to be week-to-week inconsistency. There will probably be a few crash-out games where maybe they play like a really good receiver and they just got to put all his resources there. But I think he's a receiver first. But there'll be a few inconsistent games. That's going to be he's going to be an annoying player to own for best ball. I think it's okay because sometimes he's in, sometimes he's out. But for season long, you're going to have to like check the news a lot and such. But he's a very talented receiver. And if he's your wide receiver 3, you're pretty happy. Taking in this tier, Cortland Sutton. He's used a lot. They have the best pass blocking offensive line in the league by far. Bo Nix can just chill back there. There's the stat I used in one of my old quarterback videos that he had an extra full second in time to sack compared to Drake May, which is an eternity as an NFL quarterback. Sutton has a lot of red zone usage. They did draft Pat Bryant. I think Pat Bryant's kind of more of a understudy. Maybe it takes him a year or two to really actually get serious snaps or more of a second half type of deal. I'm a little bit below market. I think this Denver defense is going to be very good. They're going to be in defensive games. They drafted RJ Harvey to run the football. I'm not entirely convinced that Bo Nix is actually good. I think he's more of a product of the offensive line. I think that Marvin Mims, Evan Engram, Devon Vele's development, Troy Franklin, I think it's just going to be a more distributed room. And Sutton is the main guy there, but I think it's a lower volume offense, and I'm not as into him as other people are. If you look at his ADP compared to, let's say, Rome, I think it's just a lower volume offense. I'm not as excited to take a lot of Sutton, and he'll be very much reliant on touchdowns. If you look at Sutton's profile from the past few years, he had his best season, but he's been a little bit of a disappointment up until there. He can definitely cook in some of these games. He definitely had a great second half to the year. He's still a very good wide receiver 3 option. I just think it's going to regress more against him, relatively speaking, relative to price. I don't think he's going to finish again as wide receiver 15. I think everything went in favor of the Broncos. They didn't have much of a running game. I think this is more of an RJ Harvey type of offense. More run heavy, more defense, that type of thing. 31, Zay Flowers. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in Baltimore. He's a bit up and down with his profile. He hasn't gotten a lot of touchdowns in his career, 4 and 5. Just the volume to rise up above his level is going to be hard. He's still 24 years old. He's still a very good receiver. He's still in a very good offense, but he's fighting with a lot. Some of these target numbers, you can't have your number 2 guy, for example, getting 7, 5, 8, 2. this isn't enough usage. Fantasy football is a opportunity and talent game. He's a very talented player, but there's a reason he's 25, 31. But if Likely is hurt, he could still be a very good yards guy. He's very effective in his own right. He's in a very good offense. Lamar is arguably the best quarterback in football, but he's more of a up and down, fits the price, fine as a wide receiver 3, but I'm not necessarily super excited to draft him. The upside is really the offense, but this Ravens defense is really, really good, and that might lend them to blow out teams. If they're blowing out teams, they don't need to throw as much. Keaton Mitchell's back. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. There's just a lot of guys in this room. Mark Andrews came off a motorcycle accident last year. He could get used more. There's just a lot of mouths to feed for me to push Zay Flowers above where he's getting taken from. Number 32, DK Metcalf. He's kind of in the George Pickens role. He gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's the main guy. There's some other guys, Jonnu, Pat Freiermuth, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, Aaron Rodgers. I can't say he's a QB upgrade over Geno. I think Geno's a very good player. This line is definitely a concern for Rodgers, who's a stationary quarterback. Rodgers is obviously older. Metcalf is definitely going to get a lot of usage in this offense. I think that Pickens is a better viewpoint of... Let's see if that loads. There we go. Pickens is more of a viewpoint of where I see DK being used. There's just inconsistency up and down in his profile. Now, if we look at just Metcalf himself, last year he's around this range, 30s. He's up and down. He's a talented player, but he's just a wide receiver 3. To me, I think this pattern continues where some games he's absolutely cooking. But this Pittsburgh defense is absolutely elite. It's arguably the best defense in the entire National Football League. They drafted Caleb Johnson. They signed Kenny Gainwell. I think this is just a slow, boring, annoying offense to be a part of, and I'm generally not super into DK, but he's fine as a third guy, but as a low-end 3, I'm just not super excited for him. Number 33, this might be the one that I whiff on the hardest because we don't know what's going on with his suspension. It's supposed to get delayed. Maybe it just comes anyway. Maybe it gets pushed to next season. When Rashee Rice plays, he is a very good player. He's been hurt a couple times. That has to factor into the analysis. He missed a lot of last year, but on a per-game basis, he is cooking. This is very good stuff. He's in the underneath role. He's out-targeted Travis Kelce, but we're still yet to see the full picture together. It's obviously a small sample size. He's a young guy, very talented. Maybe Worthy's the main guy here, so I'm not going to push him super high where other people are. This second half in this first quarter of last year, so second half 2023, this is what people are basing it on, that he's a very much a target hog. Now, I think Xavier Worthy is also worthy of that, pun intended, is also worthy of those area of the field, and I think it's going to be distributed between them. Kelce is still there. So if he was to go, if he was to beat all the allegations, whatever, which that's not even really a thing. If his discipline was delayed, I would think I'd put him right here. Maybe around Marvin Harrison range. Maybe slightly better than Worthy, just because he hasn't proven it, but that's a pretty big projection pick. He is in a good offense. He's proven a little bit more than Marv, so that's where I would put him. So this is very much news dependent. So if we get news ahead of the draft, hopefully your draft's a little bit later, or if you're in best ball, try to factor that in and get a slight exposure, but that's really the reason. You miss 6 games, especially season long in advance. That is very annoying, and that's a big deal. So keep that in mind. Now, number 34 down a tier, Chris Olave. He is a talented football player. The problem is that the quarterbacks that he's playing with are not good at football. Tyler Shough is not good. I don't care what his apologists say. He's never made, I think, top 3 teams all ACC, and that's not even necessarily a football conference outside of the U. Right now, Olave has done better in the past, but he's had his own injury concerns. Derek Carr, I thought, was a pretty good quarterback. If you look at some of the advanced numbers, at least from a throwing standpoint, Olave didn't put up crazy upside, but the wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 numbers. He can certainly get a lot of targets, but he has his own injury concerns. This offense is going to be bad. They're not going to score a lot of points. The line is not very good for pass blocking. They are good for run blocking. That's why I'm looking more at Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller in the late rounds. It's just a total circus around which player is going to be quarterback. We don't know. Kellen Moore was super run heavy with Jalen Hurts last year in Philadelphia. Also partially due to game script, but I'm just super worried about him. I think he's okay as a late wide receiver 3, but I'm just not excited for him. I want guys in good offenses. Number 35, Jakobi Meyers. Honestly, I could put him higher than this. He was taking passes from Gardner Minshew, from Aiden O'Connell. It was a rough scene for Jakobi last year, but despite that production environment, he was wide receiver 19 last year. And if you look late last season, after the Davante Adams trade that I think that was around mid-season, these usage numbers are very high, and that includes being together with Brock Bowers. I think it fits his skill set to be the number 2 guy in a room where Geno Smith goes from a really bad offensive line in Seattle to what I project as a middle-of-the-road offensive line in terms of pass blocking for the Raiders. Fantasy Points data pointed out that Geno Smith is a top 5 among all quarterbacks in games that are played in domes. He gets 12 dome games this season, so Geno is super underrated. He's a very good pure passer, one of the best passers in terms of yardage. I think he was top 5 in pass yards on throws under 10 yards. That's where Jakobi mostly cooks. You can also go deep as well. This is going to be a much better environment. You could easily justify him being higher than this. I think Brock Bowers is the main guy in this offense, but Jakobi is someone I'm very excited for at price. I think he's super underrated. It's kind of ridiculous he goes this late. He's missed little games here and there, but largely he stayed healthy. And I just believe in this team. They have Genty, they have Pete Carroll, a new coaching staff. The defense is going to be bad. Their secondary is not very good. There's a lot of concerns with this group in terms of the defense, which leads to volume for the offense. Pete Carroll wants to run the ball, but if you're losing, you got to throw the ball. Number 36, Stefon Diggs. He's doing some wild stuff in the offseason. The Patriots had the worst offensive line in football last year between them and Miami. But from their retooling, Will Campbell, some of the other acquisitions, I projected to be a more middle-of-the-road offense. It's a projection on Drake May as well. Stefon Diggs obviously has done a lot in his career. He's a little bit older. They signed him to a very big contract, so they're going to use him. This is going to be a good defense, so the volume is restricted a little bit. But he is a legitimate target earner. He has been a baller in this league. But we're drafting him at the midpoint of this and this. Obviously, he's coming off an ACL. It seems that there is some concern about whether he's going to be available or not, but there is positive sort of sentiment around him. It seems like he's going to play, but there's some degree of concern. That's why we're pricing him much lower for a guy that's been a top 10 option for 4 years straight. Before last year, he would get a lot more buzz. He's done a lot in this league. I think this Patriots team just seems like a better unit in general. He has a lot of upside, but there's a lot of risk when you're taking an injured guy who might not play. He's older. We don't know who Drake May is, and it might be more of a run-based type of system, but the talent is undeniable, and as your low-end wide receiver 3, why not? Why not him? All right, and number 37, Jerry Jeudy as a flex option. He was really good last year. He had 1,200 yards. The touchdowns is something that limits his upside. It's definitely a circus in terms of who's throwing the ball in Cleveland. Is it Joe Flacco? Is it Kenny Pickett? Is it Shador? Is it Dylan Gabriel? They're definitely incentivized to tank. He's more of a guy that's going to help you make the playoffs, and then you might have to sit him late in the year depending on the performance of the other guys. This was a Deshaun Watson time. He was doing basically nothing. When he gets decent quarterback play, Jerry Jeudy is very good. So he's a very good fill-in as a flex option. He certainly has upside if either the team is decent and Flacco stays in there. If Shador's at least decent, I think he can at least get yards. I think from a real-life standpoint, there's some concerns with Shador. Definitely shouldn't have went round 5, but there's going to be a lot of yards. The line is built to pass block. There's a lot to like from just a team that's going to be losing games. The defense is pretty good, but they're going to tank, and there's a playoff rug pull that's potentially here, but he's a guy who's going to help you advance. He's going to help you make the playoffs. Certainly underrated. Great flex option, Jerry Jeudy. Now, number 38, Jordan Addison. J.J. McCarthy seems to like him a lot. J.J. McCarthy can throw the ball deep. That's where Addison thrives. There's a lot of options in Minnesota. You have Justin Jefferson. You have T.J. Hawkinson, who I have as like a top 4 or 5 tight end. There's Aaron Jones out of the backfield. The defense in Minnesota is supposed to be very good. J.J. might be on a little more restricted, especially early in the year. Addison is suspended for 3 games. There's a lot to go up and down with Addison's profile. Also, Sam Darnold was one of the highest deep throwers in terms of fantasy points. That might affect him a little bit. He's only 23 years old. He can get better. He has upside. He is inconsistent for sure. That's why he's more of a flex option. And he misses 3 games. He's been a wide receiver too the past couple years, but I think with the suspension, the pass volume, the line supposed to protects J.J. McCarthy better. I think just the volume in the defense is going to lower Addison a bit, but he's fine as a flex. Number 39, Matthew Golden. Didn't love him as a prospect, but he's the first Packers first-round receiver since 2002. Aaron Rodgers was begging for them to draft a receiver early, and they would always wait till the second round usually to get guys. Christian Watson is hurt. Maybe he comes back late in the season. Romeo Doubs is more of the intermediate guy. I think this is the perfect spot for Golden, where Matt LaFleur, who's one of the best offensive minds in the National Football League, can scheme him open for splash plays. I think he's going to be a little bit inconsistent. He's definitely built for best ball. He's explosive with the ball in his hands. Maybe not the best pure receiver and technical receiver, but in an offense where you can get explosive plays, I think he's a really big play. Sort of a lesser Jameson Williams type of guy in a very good offensive environment. Jordan Love did have the thumb procedure, but that's on his non-throwing hand. He had the knee issue from the Brazil game last year. I think Jordan Love's going to be better. The defense is supposed to be worse. They lost Jair Alexander. So from the volume, Jordan Love is going to be better, I think, next season. The defense isn't going to be great, and there's just a lack of options in this Packers room, especially Dontavian Wicks stinks. You'll hear about that later in this video. But for the other guys, he's immediately starting. He's in 2 wide receiver sets, so Matthew Golden is a very nice pick at 39. Number 40, Emeka Puka, another first-round pick. We're a little bit nervous with Chris Godwin. There's some mixed news on what is going on with him. Potentially likely to start season on the PUP list. He's a very talented receiver. He's been hurt a decent amount, but he got a big contract, so the team has at least some degree of confidence. But he is a scary, risky pick, more for the late season. And this is a victory for Igbuka, because the concern was, he's going to get JSN, he's going to get Rome Odunze, he's just kind of the third guy. But Igbuka is a first-round talent, inside, outside receiver. He's very good if he's not the main guy in the room. His ADP keeps soaring up. Maybe I'm not as bullish as some other people are, but with an offense that's going to lose Tristan Wirfs, at least early on. There's some degree of concern with Baker's environment. He had a really good offensive line last year. There's still Mike Evans, Cade Otton. We'll see if Rashad White is back, Bucky Irving. There's a lot of other weapons. This Tampa defense isn't supposed to be very good, but I worry about the line and the offense and the efficiency. That's why he's wide receiver 40 as a flex option and not a top option. And number 41, Deebo Samuel. Probably the best place for him to go. He's been injury prone many years. He got traded to the Commanders. We have McLaurin holding out, so that's good news for his chemistry. He's missed a decent amount of time. Not a tremendous amount. The injury-prone label is sort of within games. He's kind of like Waddle in that regard. He's kind of, during the game, he might get hurt and lose you a matchup, but he can win you a matchup as well. That's why he's more of a flex option for me, but his upside is undeniable. He's been a wide receiver 2 just 2 years ago. Obviously, the offensive environment isn't maybe a net even for him because Cliff Kingsbury likes those underneath routes and manufactured touches. It's just an offense that's going to score a lot of points. I'm not a huge believer in their defense, really. So he's in a really good offensive environment. He's 29. As a flex guy, in some gadget situations, as a receiver, as the number 2 guy in Washington, this is a fun option. But I still have him at 41, so I'm a little bit behind the market. Ricky Pearsall, he's kind of the last man standing on pure aura, on pure dog levels. He's in a great offense. You don't have to be necessarily the most polished guy to succeed in a Shanahan offense. Juwan Jennings has his calf issue. Brandon Ayuk is out at least probably 6 weeks. That's sort of the latest news with him. Ricky can attract big targets. It's on a limited sample size, but he's a former first-round pick. They obviously believe in him. It's a very good offense. Purdy is still there. A not great defense over in San Francisco, so they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. CMC will take some targets. Kittle is in and out of the lineup. But as the last man standing, former first-round pick, pretty talented guy. I'm fine with him at price. And if you look at some of the Ayuk news, it is not amazing. Could return in week 6. That is sketchy. MCL, ACL in October. Then you look at Juwan, and he is not getting treatment on his calf. That is not awesome. So Ricky stocks are definitely going up. Great flex option. Could easily have him higher than that. Chris Godwin, who I mentioned, really it's an injury. He is a very talented player and a good offense, but he's more of a second half click. You could definitely justify him being lower. High risk, high reward, but this is the reward. These are great numbers at the position. He's definitely missed time on a per game basis. He's very good, but he's been a consistent 1,000-yard receiver. He can get touchdowns. It's been a little bit. He's still only 29 years old, so it's a good environment, but at his price, he is risky. He's definitely a risky guy. You'd want to have a deeper receiver room to take him. Next, 44, Khalil Shakir. He does have the ankle concerns, but it sounds like he's fine for expected back week 1, and that's 7 days ago. We don't have evidence that that's going to change, but that's a little bit of a concern. Khalil Shakir is one of the best. When the ball is in his hands, when he's in the game, he is very good. His yards per route run, his yak over expected, yards after catch over expected, given the blocking and tracking data. He's a very efficient receiver when he plays. He's a very good floor player. He can attract a lot of targets. He's obviously in a Buffalo Bills room that just oozes points. They're going to be winning a lot of games. I think they're the favorite to win the most games as a team. So that might spell more good news for James Cook. They also brought in Josh Palmer. Keon Coleman played with an injured wrist. So I think his snap share, that's something if you look at Shakir is very annoying, is that these snap share numbers are very frustrating because he was wide receiver 37 last year, but he's just kind of somehow a part-time player, but that's kind of how they roll in Buffalo. And I'm a pretty pro Josh Palmer guy. So I think it's just going to be a rotation. He is a good floor option. He's giving you these level of consistent output, especially if it's more PPR oriented. And he's a nice guy as a flex, and it seems like he's going to be fine injury-wise. One of my most owned players, Michael Pittman. He played last year with a broken back. The numbers on him weren't amazing. We were taking him in like the top 6-7 rounds. So in 2023, in PPR, top 15 receiver. He was wide receiver 41 last year in PPR. I have him 45. This is probably too low. You should probably put him, honestly, over Godwin. Maybe I'd put him here. Him and Shakir are similar guys. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Indianapolis. That's why I don't think he's going to necessarily recapture the glory of 2 years ago. But there's also Tyler Warren there, Anthony Richardson, and Daniel Jones. That's a concern. It's a very good line for whoever gets to throw passes back there. And maybe Daniel Jones is better than we think. He made the playoffs with the Giants before. He can throw the ball a little bit. There are injury concerns. He has a groin concern. Obviously, when you've played with a fractured back, that doesn't just disappear overnight. But at his price, I've been taking him a lot. He falls a lot. I mean, these are some crazy target getter numbers. But it's a very loaded room with Downs, with Warren, with Jonathan Taylor. They're, in terms of wins and losses, they're kind of really middle of the pack. If you think the Colts are going to be bad and losing games, they're going to throw the ball more. Do you think they're going to be good? They're going to run the ball more, and that's more of Jonathan Taylor. So, but he's put up numbers. Underneath guy, you don't have to be the greatest quarterback in the history of the world to get Pittman the ball, and he's super underrated. I have like ridiculous amounts of him in best ball just because he's so underrated. He goes at like the 50s. It's insane. And that range, especially, it starts getting gross like pretty soon. These are still like capable players. That's why you can wait a bit. Once you get kind of like your hero guy, you can wait a little bit. This range is tough. This is a fun range. There's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys you can fill in with later. And number 46, Juwan Jennings. He has the calf concern. That's really what pushes him down. He's done well on a per-game basis when he does get some actual snaps, a lot of targets, when he gets opportunities. Some of his per-game numbers, his advanced numbers are quite strong. He almost had 1,000 yards last year, PPR 24, but this calf injury is very concerning. Ayuk could come back. I think Ricky is more of a priority in terms of what the team thinks. He doesn't have a contract that he's happy with. There's a lot of smoke and concern with him, and he's been a part-time player most of his career. So that worries me on a limited sample size. That's why he's more of a low-end kind of flex guy, but the receiver position is deep. So moving on, number 49, Jaden Higgins, rookie. I think he was the first rookie in NFL history with a fully guaranteed contract. He goes second round. He has a lot of upside. The offensive line for Stroud isn't great. Nico Collins is a clear alpha here, but Higgins is pretty much starting right away. They don't really have an outside receiver. They have Noel as well, Christian Kirk, which will usurp some of the targets. Houston's defense is going to be very good, so that's going to siphon away some of the volume, but Higgins has a lot of upside because he has an immediate role. Stroud can be better if this line isn't completely garbage. It is a little bit lower volume. The concern with Mixon is going to indicate that they're going to pass more, but as a number 2 target with a capable quarterback and high draft capital as a rookie, second half we could see Jaden Higgins absolutely crush this score, but he's a tier below because the defense is a little bit better, so that's going to limit the opportunities for Stroud to just absolutely cook here. Number 48, Keon Coleman. When you're a Buffalo Bill, you have a chance. He played with a hurt wrist. We give Tyreek Hill a pass for having a hurt wrist last year. Keon's a bit inconsistent. His separation numbers aren't great, but we've seen other big receivers do fine in this league. He had some big, at least a couple big games, and he was earning snaps. But when you're a Buffalo Bill, you get the benefit of the doubt. He's still a former high second-round pick. He has a lot of good attributes in terms of the red zone work. We'll see if Cook and Allen get that many touchdowns. But when you're a Buffalo Bill, when you're the number one offense in the league at wide receiver, 48? Oops, that is not the right tab. At wide receiver 48, this is a really good spot for him. And he has a lot of upside. And for best ball, he's really fun. Because any game, he could just break off a big touchdown. Number 49, Jayden Reed. He has some injury concerns. He doesn't get in on 2 wide receiver sets. They brought in Matthew Golden for a reason. That probably hurts his odds even more. His per game metrics are really good. He's been better than this, but he's at least he shed the walking boot. That is brand new information. He sheds the walking boot, but he's still iffy for week 1. He could easily go higher than this, but he's very inconsistent. He's a pretty annoying player to have, but his upside is very real. His per snap numbers will make you crash out because he does really well in yards per route run, grade. He gets open. He's good at yak. Like, he's a really good player, but you've got to play in order to be a really high-end wide receiver. These are like 50, 60, 70% snap shares right here. These are yellows, and that's why you get this level of inconsistency. Very annoying. It's okay in best ball, but annoying. He's an annoying player, and at price, I'm avoiding him. 50, Keenan Allen. This is someone who is super underrated. I alluded to him with Lad McConkey. He is kind of the Cooper Kupp, but a better version. He was the wide receiver 9 last year. So last year's 34 PPR, you discount that a little bit in half. He's been a very good receiver most of his career. He's missed a decent amount of time. But look at some of these numbers from, week 10 or 12 last year. He, in a very difficult post-Shane Waldron, Caleb Williams struggling as a rookie offense, he put up some really big numbers. Yeah, he's older. Yeah, there's other guys in the Chargers room, Trey Harris, even Keandre Lambert-Smith, and others that will take some targets away, but he is underrated for where he goes. Justin Herbert's a very good quarterback. They obviously have the previous chemistry. He's going to get targets. He's going to get a role right away. And he's one of the last, comfy receivers that you can throw as a flex option before it starts getting really nasty. He's one of the better slot receivers in this game. And he gets to be in a good offense with Justin Herbert. So that's a logic on Keenan. Really good receiver value. But his price is going up fast. Josh Downs, a love of the analytics community. He kind of suffers from the same Jayden Reed crap. He's in a room with just a lot of guys. Pittman, Warren, A.D. Mitchell, Alec Pierce. And the quarterback situation is more iffy. It's like a slightly worse version of Jayden Reed. Josh Downs is a very good receiver. I think he was 11th in PFF grade. His first downs per route run is really good. On a per snap basis, if he wasn't at the Colts, if he had a more regular role. But he is just fighting with a lot of guys for playing time, and that's why he's down as a flex option. That's why he's 35, 43. He could certainly be better than this. A lot of people really like him, so get multiple perspectives. He can certainly produce, but this is also with Pittman on a broken back. These snap shares are very annoying, and there's some degree of inconsistency, but he is a good football player. I have to give him that, but we need to see more opportunity to really push him up to where sort of the Pukas, the Goldens, that sort of range, the Olave, that range. Next, we have Marvin Mims. He got a lot of snaps with the Broncos unit in the first preseason game. He's just an amazing deep threat. His Oklahoma highlights are unreal. This is really just a projection pick, just a YOLO projection. They protect Bo Nix really well. He does have a good deep ball. I did say some kind of not great comments on him earlier. He was receiver 57 last year. He can do a lot, and he has a lot of upside. He's still only 23 years old. It seems like he's locking in this wide receiver 2 role, at least as the deep guy in this offense. If they take even a little bit of a step, he could be really good. But this is really a YOLO projection. Upside kind of pick. I understand if you're like, you know what, he's done nothing. He's just a total deep throw merchant, and I understand, but I think there's a lot of room for development. That's where I see Marvin Mims playing, because he barely played on his yards per route run, his fantasy points per snap. He's like top 5 or 10 as an option. So with more snaps, I think, and more opportunity, I think I can get there with him. But obviously a guy who's not even cracking 50 last year, that's scary. But that's a projection, and monitor some of the news and coach speak with that. All right, number 53, Cooper Kupp. In comparison to Keenan, Cooper Kupp has missed a lot of time. It is definitely concerning that the Rams were willing to let him go. They could have reworked his contract. Cooper Kupp can certainly play and put up numbers. That's why we like him. The aggregate numbers, it's really the injuries that are very annoying. He's missed half the season the past couple years. It's been 4 years since he was lighting the league on fire. He is a pretty good option just as a desperation kind of flex guy. In his per game numbers, if he's out there, he will play, but he is injury prone. And there's a reason that the Rams let him go. I think it's mostly injury concern. I think he can still play. It looks like he could get wide receiver 2 sets with Jackson Smith and Jigba. The way the team is talking is that they want to do a lot of heavy personnel, but I think this is a pretty good Seattle defense. They're going to run the ball a lot. They have 2 of the best running backs in football. The line isn't great to protect Darnold. I think he'll get enough to make Cooper Kupp at least valid as a flex, but this is where it starts getting, he's like the last of like the, I'm okay putting him on my lineup and I'm not like squinting and really crashing out and being annoyed with him, but it starts getting rough after that. But him and Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'll try to scroll up more to remind us of the top options, are just a little bit lesser version of McConkey and Keenan Allen, where it's just a worse offense. Herbert's better than Darnold. They might get a little more concentration of the targets. That's why they're close. And the Seattle defense is pretty good. 54 injury projection. There isn't much more to say on Ayuk than we hope he gets better. When Ayuk does play, he is very good at football. I just don't know if this is the year, but it's worth the risk at this price. Just stash him on the bench. But he's been a top 15 receiver before. Great offense. Pure X receiver. Really good player, but he is just very injured right now and could return in week 6 is not a great vibe. You see with someone like a TJ Hawkinson, who might be the best comp in terms of, spelled Hawkinson wrong, I think. He lost a lot of his snaps last year, and he was just not very good in terms of points per game. And he was good before. So that's kind of where I see. He's like the Hawkinson of the receiver position. So that's why he's 54 and not higher than that for me. And next is Rashad Bateman. More so a product of the offense that he's in. Bateman is inconsistent, but if you need a YOLO option, he's annoying to have. Like some weeks he cooks. Some weeks he doesn't. He has very good like separation scores, grades. He's good against man and zone. He's still a young player, only 25 years old. Big Ten fans remember him and Minnesota being a good player. He had his best year last year. I'm projecting lower than what he was last year because of DeAndre Hopkins. There's just a lot of mouths to feed, and they could be winning a lot of games. So that's what really throws me off with some of the Rashad Bateman projection, is that he is fighting with a lot of guys, with a team that's going to win a lot of games. A really good defense, so this could be a lower volume pass offense, but he is a very good player. Next is Luther Burden. It is just a game of guessing how much Ben Johnson likes him. There's a lot of mixed feelings about him. Just from a talent and upside perspective, he's worth having. He was a high second-round pick. A coach that would like to use his skill set, a front office that invested in him in the second round. He's fine as like a stash guy, but early in the season, I don't think he's going to contribute a ton. But the talent is certainly there. 2 years ago at Missouri, he was really good. And then in his platform season, he wasn't as good. But it's really a projection on opportunity. But there's a lot of mouths to feed in Chicago. So totally understand if he's just not on your board. Next is Darnell Mooney. He was really good last year, but the news on him is really, really sketchy. Remains week to week. Confident it will be this year. That is scary. So for a lesser talent than Brandon Ayuk, but maybe a slightly better injury projection, he was going band for band with Drake London, with Kirk Cousins, now with Michael Penix. It was more in London's favor, but he was almost a 1,000-yard receiver last year, but that's why he's down as wide receiver 57. So as that projection with that injury, that's why I'm concerned with Mooney. And he goes a lot earlier than this. That's why I'm generally fading him. But if he falls more of this injury news, I'm fine with it. All right, number 58, Rashee Shaheed, talented player. He's done well in the past. But the QB situation, as I alluded with Olave, very bad, low-scoring offense. He's still a young guy, some room for development. He's good for best ball more so because he has that upside in his range of outcomes. He can get targets, but there's still a lot of projection, and he hasn't done a lot, and he's in a low offense. But this is another high-risk, high-reward type of click. Let's go to 59, Christian Kirk, who the Jaguars traded for next to nothing. I think that's partially contract-related. I don't think they're saying he sucks. I think it's more that he just makes a lot of money. It's so fine. He can get some targets. There's a lot of target competition in Houston. He's still only 28 years old. He's missed quite a bit of time, which is annoying. So he's more of a floor guy while he's healthy, early season option. But I think Jalen Noel is going to take the reins late in the season. But as an early season, like, just stick him in. He's going to be a guy you see like week 1 through 3 and be like, wow, how did Kirk go so late? Like, my team's pretty good. Potential safety blanket, but I think that's Noel late in the year. So more on him later. 60, Josh Palmer, one of my favorite projections. He has a good separation score, good grades, not like world beating. He got a 3-year contract, so they believe in him. He had 2 nice grabs from Mitch Trubisky in the preseason opener. When you're a Buffalo Bill, you get a level of deference that others just simply don't get. When you're at wide receiver 60, he's been at 37. He's been more of a part-time guy. He's missed time, but the upside when you're a Buffalo Bill is very real, and some of his advanced numbers are pretty good. He's gotten to yards before. It's more of a Buffalo Bills and a film. He's had 133, 77, 113. He's done it before, but he's missed a lot of time. And at 25, he's still a young guy, so there's some room for development in a Josh Allen offense. Then you get down to the next year. Romeo Doubs, he has some injury concerns here. So he's just really the floor guy in this offense. I take a lot of him in best ball just when I'm doing thinner wide receiver groups, and I know he's going to get some degree of usage. There is a bit of inconsistency, but he's one of the main like red zone guys with Watson hurt, with Wicks being completely garbage at football. He seems to be a guy who he's in wide receiver 2 sets with an improving Jordan Love. It's a bet on the offense, as I've kind of mentioned before. He's been fine in this range. He's actually done better than this price, but there's concern with his back. There's other different concerns with him. But good opportunity with the Packers. You have a few guys, but I prefer Reed on a person basis and Golden, but there's enough there in Green Bay to feed all of these guys, at least at their price. Next is Cedric Tillman. Really, he's a pure film type of guy. He produced in his small sample set. Last year, he hasn't done it on a season aggregate, but with Jameis Winston, he put up 3 really good games. He looked very good as an X receiver. There's not a lot of competition. I'm not a huge believer in Deontay Johnson responding to this crash out, and crash out recovery wouldn't necessarily be in Cleveland. So I think he's going to be fine. There's obviously concerns with the injuries and the concussion, but he's a young guy. He's had flashes. The Browns have a good pass blocking line. This is going to be a team that's going to be losing. They could trade Judy or Njoku. This could be him or Fannin. So for that reason, give me Cedric Tillman at his price. At wide receiver, 62. Next, Alec Pierce, one of the great best ball sneak jobs over here. The best ball people know him well. He on upside. There's a lot of options. I think AD Mitchell pushes down his price, but I have him a lot at price. But he's done 122 touchdown, 81 touchdown, 131 touchdown, 125 touchdown. I think he had 5 top 10 or top 12 weeks. Some injury concern. In this depth chart, you also have a lot of different guys. Pierce, Adonai Mitchell's going to snatch some chain. You have Tyler Warren. It's an annoying room for sure. So that has to matter with him. That's why he's ranked lower. But as like a desperation flex, more of a best ball pick, a guy that maybe you're the underdog and you just want a guy that's zero or hero, that's what Alec Pierce is. Still a young guy. One of the best deep threats. I don't think it matters if it's Jones or Richardson. I know that's kind of a common trope in the community. I don't care. I think they're both very good. Save me, Demario Douglas. And once again, it's a bet on the Patriots as a whole. Drake May being better. He's more of a floor guy. He gets a lot of targets. Very good for PPR. He was better than this rating, actually. He's only 24 years old. Clear slot guy. Consistency in camp. It's going to be just a better team in general. So it's an overall bet on Drake May and the team in general. There are a lot of mouths to feed, which caps some of his upside. That's why he's not ranked higher. Next, Jalen Coker. On a pure talent, catch rate over expected, which is a next-gen stats metric. His yak numbers, I just think he's straight up better than Xavier Legette. Coker in limited time was very good. But the problem is he's fighting with Tet. He's fighting with Thielen. He's fighting with Xavier Legette, as I just mentioned. But there is a decent amount to like. He has at least hit flashes of 110 and 62 and 78. He's a really talented guy, young guy. I know he's undrafted, but this is a talent that I want. I think he could usurp Legette. He's definitely a sleeper of mine. Bryce Young looks very good, much better last season. He was one of the better quarterbacks in football last year. This is just a really good bet at his price as a young guy in an ascending offense with a bad defense with a good quarterback. Next is Trey Harris. Not sure what's going on with his ADP, but his price is definitely falling. Just as a talent, a second round grade and draft capital in this Chargers room. I think he can be an inconsistent deep threat guy. He's fighting with both Quentin Johnston and Keenan and even Keandre Lambert-Smith, but I think he's well ahead of Quentin Johnston. It seems, at least the way Sleeper's framing it, but I think it's just a rotation of snaps. That's what worries me, but his per route numbers, his yards per route run, a really good deep threat. I think he'll just be inconsistent. He might be more of a red zone guy if Ladd and Keenan are taken care of. Like, Ladd had really, really good yak numbers and scored some longer touchdowns, so he could be more of a red zone guy. So I think he's actually okay. But his price is still way too expensive. But I'll take some falling Trey Harris for sure. Jalen Noel, who I mentioned earlier with Christian Kirk, I think he's just super talented. Third round pick. Just basically comps to Christian Kirk. Kirk gets hurt a lot. Stroud likes his slot guys. Look at what Tank Dell did 2 years ago. Stroud can support 3 guys, especially if the defense isn't amazing or if Mixon's hurt. They got to throw a lot more. They do lose Bobby Slowick and replace it with, I believe it's Nick Caley, who has some Sean McVay type of tier connections there. So Noel, just as a talent, I think he's underrated. I think he's really good at wide receiver 67. Down the next tier, Thielen, one of the best pure man coverage guys. I think that Hunter Renfrow, if he makes this team, is going to annoy the crap out of him because they're fighting for snaps. On a per snap basis, Thielen does have real upside. He's older, so at some point he might get traded if the team is losing, but there's a lot of pass volume, so I think Thielen's fine at his price. Next is Kyle Williams. Very much a film-oriented thing. There's still Kayshon Boutte. There's Stefon Diggs. Maybe Diggs doesn't play week 1. He's a third-round pick. There's a lot of upside with Kyle Williams. He played with the second team. It's an overall bet on the team, but the film guys just love him. So for that reason, let's put him at the nice, very nice, great number, 69. My guy, Isaac Tesla. As an analytics person, I am supposed to hate Tesla. I'm kind of going against the analytics gang and army. His physical tools are amazing. His preseason tape, you gotta watch it. I think the BBM winner is going to have Tesla somewhere on the roster. All he has to do is beat out Tim Patrick for his spot. I think he's one of the best sleepers on the board. He's so talented. It might take 5-6 weeks, but he has been praised by everyone from Amon-Ra St. Brown to Goff to the coaches. They love him, and I think he's going to play right away. I think he's a total smash. This is a humble score, but if you're in my league, he sucks. He's totally bad. Don't touch him. He's mine. Stay away. 71, Hollywood Brown. He's a Chief. He's talented, but he is just constantly hurt. He's so annoying. He's already ruled out of the preseason. That's amazing. Ay, ay, ay. He is talented, but he just keeps missing time. He's done some numbers, but I just think it's a lot of other guys. I know he's ahead of Royals right now, but he's a Chief. But he's a Chief. That's the issue with Hollywood. I just don't love him very much. He goes much earlier than that. Good old Wan'Dale Robinson. He gets a lot of targets in this room somehow. He's actually a pretty good receiver. His build is smaller, so there's injury risk. He's still a young guy. He can develop, but 11, 9, 12, 11 targets. He's posted some of the worst yards on targets, but in a team that's going to lose some games, in a room that's pretty consolidated, and Malik Nabers has some injury concerns. Whoops, clicked him on accident. With Malik Nabers, Wan'Dale, Slayton's a pretty consolidated room. When you're at this level of ADP range, you're just hoping for a guy with targets, a little bit potentially better QB performance. I think Russ is going to look down a bit, so I think he's just fine. That's kind of where he goes. Xavier Legette, kind of mentioned with Bryce Young, it's a bet on the team. As kind of a Deebo Samuel Z type of guy, there's some talk about he's a former first-round pick. He was kind of playing the wrong position. The team wasn't very good last year. There's a lot of volume if one of the guys gets traded, but I just think Coker is better. But this Carolina room is really worth monitoring. Look, we have 3 guys over here to go with all the way up here is Tet McMillan. I just think Tet's the guy in this room. You also have Jatavian Sanders. There might be some inconsistency with X. He had, I think, some flashes. I remember having him last year a little bit. He had some flashes in 2024. He's at least hit 50, 60 a couple times, but I think he'll be better. But this is still a pretty cheap price to get him. He's basically free in season-long drafts. DeAndre Hopkins, he's still good at the catch point. Yes, he doesn't get the yak numbers that he used to. When you're a Baltimore Raven, there's so many touchdowns available. He's a beneficiary of the Isaiah Likely injury. Hopkins still play a little bit. I think he's underrated no matter where you take him. He's boring, relative. You want just the young, flashy guy. But in Kansas City, they threw him the ball. They threw him back shoulders in the Super Bowl. He had some knee concerns, but he's fine. It's been a hot minute, but he was still wide receiver 48 last year. He's in a very live environment. So, yeah, he's on the decline for sure. He's older, but he can catch touchdowns if you need someone to just fill a spot, and he's at a really good landing spot. Number 75, Torrey Horton. He's running with the starters. Just watch some of his film. 5th round pick, just a really fast player. Sam Darnold was top 10 in deep fantasy points. He's going to be inconsistent. He's more of a best ball pick. I definitely have him behind Cooper Kupp. I have him behind Jackson Smith and Jigba. But he looks like he's winning over MVS for this deep shot role, and that has value. And he's a rookie. He has upside, and Darnold likes throwing the ball deep if they get some protection. So we'll see what happens, but that's a fun late pick. Michael Wilson, he is in some degree of competition with Zay Jones. There's Greg Dortch there. The offense is supposed to be top 10. He did have some flashes as a rookie, but that is something to monitor. I did like Wilson a bit more beforehand, and he's had some flashes. He was wide receiver 59 and 60 the past 2 years. He's still a young guy. Top 10 offense, but there is some Zay Jones concerns, and that's why he's 75, or 76 actually, pardon me. 77, Jalen McMillan. If this Godwin injury is really very serious or more concerning, McMillan could mix in. I know he's a wide receiver 4 on his own team. What on earth are you doing? But wide receiver 55 last year, 8 touchdowns. He has real upside when he gets real opportunity. Very good player. He's on that high-powered Washington offense. And with the offensive concerns with Tampa that I mentioned before, that's what's kind of keeping him down. But if Godwin is hurt and he's the third guy, because Puka would rank ahead of him, and they drafted a receiver first for a reason, that's why he's here in the 70s range. But 77, totally cool upside pick. Darius Slayton, you're the wide receiver 2 in New York. When Malik Nabers was out, Darius Slayton showed that he can produce. 122 and a touchdown, 57, 56, 108. These are games without Malik Nabers. Now, he's had a shoulder, he's had a foot, Malik Nabers has. So there is some degree of wide receiver handcuff upside. He's super underrated. He has a stable role. Yeah, these numbers aren't fantastic, but he's still a relatively youngish player. He got a 3-year contract. He is entrenched as the wide receiver, really 3 or 2. They have him as 3, but Wandale's like the slot guy more so. But he's pretty entrenched. So I have a lot of Slayton in best ball, especially 79, Jack Besh. Just off draft capital. I know he should be buried a little bit harder than this. You could say he's undraftable, but round 2 guy, that's really the rationale for a good offensive environment. I just think it could change. Let's see what happens. Pat Bryant, it seems that he's getting buried a little bit from early returns, more of a Cortland Sutton, similar type of guy. Something if Sutton gets hurt. Pat Bryant is talented, touchdown potential guy, but in a low volume offense, there's just a lot of mouths to feed in Denver for a relatively low volume, more run heavy, defense heavy offense that I project them to be. Dante Thornton, you could easily switch him in Besh. Thornton is a more raw prospect, a very deep ball. He's a crazy athlete. He has some 6'5", 4'3" speed, which he's fun as a sleeper, but he could easily just churn him and burn him. For your lineup, Geno Smith was top 5 or something in deep ball yards last year, so he can throw the deep ball. He's going to get better protection than he did in Seattle. So Thornton is a fun click, but he is a round 4 selection. Trey Tucker could get that role. That's the talk, but it's a lot. It's all over the place. Next, I have Trey Tucker. So let's look at this. It's just a total wash over here because I think this news says that he's earning the number 2 role. He hasn't really done much in the past. 500 yards. Obviously a better QB environment. He's still young. So you could rank any of these guys a little bit more. I just think when you draft 2 receivers in the first 4 rounds, that's more of this. Sleeper at least has him. Maybe they didn't update it, but that's where I have Trey Tucker. I just have him slightly below because the other guys have more team investment. When the team, like someone in best ball, is invested in someone, when you've invested in something, you want that to work. So I think the rookies, as the season goes on, will usurp, like Christian Kirk and Noel. I think this is going to be a situation where Tucker might get the first few games, and then these guys come in and snatch chain. I like going this deep on the receivers because the waiver wire, you might pick up Dante Thornton and be like, is this guy actually decent? But he's more of a deep threat, late round guy. So we'll see. Tyler Lockett with Cam Ward. He was signed to a 1-year deal. Seems like he's the number 2 in Tennessee. They're going to be losing games. They did draft Amon-Ra and DK, but more in the mid-rounds. He's certainly on the decline, but there's a lot of targets available with only 74 targets. That's not going to bode very well for him. I think he's the wide receiver 2 here. Maybe it's Amon-Ra, but he's safer. It might be another situation like Kirk, like Noel. The veteran leads early in the year, and then kind of a transfer of power. 32 years old isn't like a death sentence as a receiver. We've seen Adam Thielen still produce as the guy. I'm a big believer in Cam Ward. I think he's going to be good. It's a good line. They're going to be down games. They're going to have to throw the ball. And that's going to bode well for Tyler Lockett at his price. I mean, we're in the 80s right now. This is pretty late. Next is Roman Wilson, my guy, Michigan. Hero of the college football playoff. Made one of the best catches against Alabama in the semis. Amazing guy. Amazing player. He didn't play at all last year, but if you look at this depth chart right now, not a lot of options outside of him. Seems like he's got a starting role. Calvin Austin, I believe, is dealing with an abdominal injury. So that gives Roman a lot of opportunities to do well and get some degree of role. He was a third-round pick. He didn't play last year. So it's like drafting a rookie. He's 24 years old. We'll see what happens. Low volume, good defense, offense. He's a starter. That's why he's 84. And let's see if that works. Oh, had a little typo. Hopefully that's not there. Okay. So Calvin Johnson, 86. I think I'm supposed to have QJ 85. I don't know what's going on with that. So it would be QJ 85. Apologies that the graphic is not complying. And then it's 80 Mitchell. So maybe I'll talk about all of them in concert. So QJ, he's just buried behind these guys. He was a former first-round pick. Some of the film guys say that this is very fluky. It was some blown coverages. He did produce, and he's in a good offense. He's only 23 years old, but this is a really rough depth chart. There's just a lot of guys. Trey Harris, you draft a second freaking round. Keandre Lambert-Smith looks good. They want to run the ball more. That's a tough scene for QJ. So that then it is Calvin Austin, who I just mentioned. Good deep threat, more for best ball. He's had 95. He's hit 78 before, 65, 65. So he's had a few good games, but this is a low-volume guy. 26 years old, so he's, mid-career. But there's some injury concern, low-volume offense. I just have Roman slightly higher than him. AD Mitchell is definitely, if you believe in the adjusted separation score, he is really good. There's just a lot of guys in a relatively low-volume offense. You have Pierce ahead of him, Downs, Pittman. There's Tyler Warren. Is it Daniel Jones? Is it Anthony Richardson? He has looked good in film. He did look good in preseason. He's only 22, so that's really a prospect projection type of pick. Number 88 is Jermaine Burton, very talented player who's crashed out before in college. I think, and that's why he fell to the third round. He was a former Bulldog, and also with Alabama. I think he was a third-round pick. I think we'll take it over Yoshi Vash. Yoshi is pretty solid, but I just find at this level of the draft, I want upside. So that's why he's ahead of Yoshivash for me. Now, they're both young guys. Yoshi's pretty good, 479, but he had opportunities. He couldn't necessarily usurp even Trent Irwin. I mean, 50 and 50, but he isn't getting like crazy work. But when you're a Bengal, hey, you got a shot. Tyler Boyd has cooked in the past, so why not him? And this is as a late round sleeper. So Boyd has been in the 30s before, obviously a little different situations over the years, but Boyd has done it before, and that's crazy. He's only 30 years old. Wow. Did not know that. Jordan Whittington, my guy. So I get a lot of hate for this, but he is going to be Tutu Atwell for the number 3 job if Matthew Stafford is healthy. Jordan Whittington has really good yards for route run numbers. He has a really good PFF grade. He's done well in limited time. He's a very good actual receiver. He's a sleeper of mine. Really fun. He's had a few good games. And that's really it. He's done well in limited time. He's 24 years old. Has made a strong impression in camp. I think he's going to beat he's going to be 2-2 for that number 3 job. And when you're at receiver 89 in a high-scoring offense with Matthew Stafford, I mean, with Jimmy G, I'm less excited, and you really have the main 2 guys. I also like Terrence Ferguson, and the one thesis on him is you look at Demarcus Robinson, who was last year with the Rams. And what did he do? Receiver 62, 7 touchdowns last year. We forget that Robinson was pretty good. And that's a thesis on him. When you're the 3rd guy, you can at least cook somewhat. So that's the rationale. And he was older, and probably I would say Whittington's a better wide receiver as a real-life player. Devon Vele, really good at the catch point, very good hands. He's an underneath guy. I think he's going to cancel out Evan Engram for some of these targets. He's just going to be annoying to own, but he'll get some work in a decent offense. That's kind of the Vele rationale. I think he's fun, but he's going to need some injuries or something to really produce, but he's still a young guy. Good offense, good player, more for real life than fantasy. They drafted Pat Bryant too. Jalen Royals, it's more of a Hollywood fade. If anything, I know he's running with lower ranks on the depth chart, but when you're a mid-round pick with the Kansas City Chiefs, there is some possibility that you make this team. Who knows what happens with Rashee? That's more of a Rashee projection, and when you're a Chief, you got a shot. Ray McLeod, as I mentioned with Mooney, he is sketchy. So with Ray, he should honestly go higher than this. I should probably put him like 80. Could even put him over the Raiders guys, to be honest. You could totally. He had 686, receiver 50 last year. He can certainly get targets. He would be the next guy standing. Maybe they sign someone if Mooney's really cooked, but he is the wide receiver 3 in Atlanta. As I mentioned with Mooney, if he becomes a wide receiver 2, this is like, where would he go? If he was truly wide, if they said Mooney was out for the year, where would I put Ray McLeod? Ooh. Here. I think I'd put him 61, maybe even higher. Yeah, I'd say 61, because if you're drafting Mooney healthy around here, I'd put him 61. So that's kind of where I stand with Ray McLeod. 93 is Amari, please sign. Amari, please sign. Oh my gosh, what is going on? He's a very talented player. He's had some crash outs. He was traded for the 3rd-round pick last year. And if you look at some of his past, yes, 63, we're not happy with that. But look at all these years. Look at all these years of good receiver play. He's only 30 years old. The idea that he's just totally fallen off, I don't buy that at all. At wide receiver 93, why not? I have a lot of him in best ball. He's been a 1,000-yard receiver most of his career. Maybe it's contract. Maybe it's the same thing with Keenan. If he signs, depends where he goes. If he's a Jet, I'd go here. Sub Keenan if he's a Jet. If he's at a good team, you can move him up even here. Depends where he goes. If Mooney's out for the year and he's a wide receiver 2 in Atlanta, I put him like 47. Maybe between here if he signs. But that's why he's a question mark. We don't know what's going on with him. No team. It really sucks. But Amari, please sign for my bags. Amari, please sign. Please. Oh my God, please. So, 94, Malik Washington. He got a lot of short area work. Maybe he's stealing some of that Jonnu Smith underneath work. This Miami Dolphins line is supposed to be really, really bad. Like, really bad. Worst in the league type stuff. Especially if Austin Jackson doesn't come back. He could get some of the underneath work. I think it goes to Malik, or not to Malik Washington. To Malik Washington from Achan. I think Achan is the main beneficiary. Maybe it's more consolidated with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If there is a Tyreek Hill trade, Malik Washington goes up to maybe this range. I would say tier 11. So keep that in mind. Elic Iomanor, not Eric, I apologize. He could snatch the chain of Tyler Lockett. If he's a true wide receiver 2, that would spell a lot of upside, but it's an unknown as a 4th-round rookie. But he's in a relatively ambiguous room, and there's targets to be had in this offense. Is it Chig? Is it him? Is it DK? Is it Restrepo? Is it others? But I think early in the year, it's going to be more so Lockett. And then he gets some later in the year. 96, Josh Reynolds. Not the greatest guy. He's producing some spot duty with the Rams. He's producing spot duty with the Lions last year. So he's done at least 93. That's not great. This is pretty gross. We're in the 90s. Back in the day, he's had his moments. I don't remember him being in Jacksonville. That's interesting. Thought he was with the Lions. But mostly with the Lions, he's done a little bit here and there, but he's the receiver 2 with the Jets right now, and that has to mean something. Maybe Tyler Johnson snatches chain, but I really hope Malachi Cortley, but doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's the 2 in a very low-volume defensive run-first environment. That's why he's all the way down here. 97, Jalen Naylor. He gets 3 starts with the injury to, or not the injury, the suspension to Jordan Addison. So 3 starts, that's enough to draft you 97. Good passing environment. If something happens to Jefferson's hamstring, if it's a really good passing offense, he seems to be the number 3 over Ty Felton. But if that changes, he goes down. That's why he's here at 97. 98, as I mentioned before. 2-2, good when he plays and gets opportunity. Very good deep threat. The Rams don't really have a deep threat on the roster outside of Davante Adams. But this isn't great. He's had a few games, but this is gross, to be honest. This is gross. I mean, max 562. Better than some other people I'll be mentioning later in this video, though. So Yoshi Voss, as I mentioned, number 99. He is talented. He's gotten almost 500 yards. It's a good offense. He could win over Burton. I just think Burton's more talented. MVS, losing to Torrey Horton. Low-volume offense. He's behind Cooper Kupp. He's behind JSN here. So that's what worries me about MVS. It's just he can't even secure that, and he's been annoying. He's up and down guy. You don't really start him a ton, but maybe Sam Darnold's gunslinger, top 10 fantasy points on deep throws. That'll matter. He's had his moments. I mean, a couple of really good moments. More fun for best ball every once in a while, but I mean, 687 once. Tough. Tough freaking scene. Up to 5.5. Tough scene. Next is Jalen Tolbert. This might be Kevontae Turpin, but if you're the wide receiver 3 and sort of the Bengals South, that's what gets Tolbert the role here, or the opportunity to get drafted. He had a couple good games, 82. He's had a touchdown, 87 touchdown. He's had 7 touchdowns last year. But George Pickens is mostly going to take most of that. He's still 26. Mid-round pick. I think he wins it over Turpin, but that's a battle to monitor. Now it is what people who know me are waiting for. The crash out tier. The skibbity, garbage, labubu, trash at football tier. Diami Brown. I know he's the wide receiver 3 supposedly in the Jaguars room. He still sucks. I don't care. He is 25 years old. He's been in the league for 4 years. He's never passed 308. You know, I've been saying 312, but it's actually worse, 308. He caught a couple deep balls from Jaden Daniels in the playoffs, and now we're crowning him as something. Parker Washington is arguably just as good. I would rank him probably like 110. Just, gross. I mean, maybe some manufacturer touches with Liam Cohen. That's the best you're hoping for with him. And last and definitely least. Who? Not just because I'm a Bears fan. Not just because he stole a lot of my fab last year. Not that I was rug pulled potentially by people saying you should blow your whole fab on this guy. Dontavian Wicks cannot catch the ball. He led the team in expected fantasy points. And what has he come of it? He's hurt. He's not even healthy. Calf. Oh, that's fun for Juwan Jennings. 24. He had one game that lives on in infamy that scanned us all. 13 targets. He's getting all of these targets. He can't catch the ball. The worst drop rate potentially in football. He's had 581 in this. Like, yeah, whatever. 72-58. He just stinks. They drafted Matthew Golden first round for a reason. Romeo Doubs is better. Watson's coming back. He just can't catch the ball. Yeah, he gets open, but so what? Catch the freaking ball. You've ruined my teams. Ugh, gross. Whew. So, for those of you who are total sickos, who love this game, who are in deep ad leagues, who want a resource I've never seen, maybe beyond 50 or 60. So let's kind of recap. These are the absolute turbo studs. Really good players. Some slight question marks, injuries, and stuff. The sort of back half of the wide receiver ones. Riskier guys with their offense or, character issues. A wide receiver 2 range that's a little tough, but these are really, really good players. But some odd situations, and you have a top rookie. Really good players, more wide receiver 2s in general, but talented guys with some target competition. Terry has his concerns. This is a really fun wide receiver 2 flex range. Rome is a projection. Some good wide receiver 2s, some really good talent, some explosive players. You have some kind of like stalwart X players on not great offenses. Then you have sort of lower guys on not great offenses. Some really exciting first round rookies. Suspension guys, guys that produce in bad offenses, injured guys, underrated guys, and injured guys. Then you start getting into more of the flex options. These are more speculative guys. Maybe the last of the guys are happy to have in your lineup that will fill out your team and start real games in season long and best ball. This is more of the speculative, deep. They're injured. They're kind of floor guys in the offense. That's this tier. Then you get into talent and bet situations, whether that's the Patriots, whether that's the Browns with Tillman, Dobbs, which is kind of the floor guy. Pierce is a best ball guy, Coker to win the job. Then these are like veterans, high upside. Tesla is my freaking guy. Horton is awesome. Wilson should have a role. Slayton should have a role. A really messy situation in Vegas at the receiver 2 spot. Maybe they should sign Amari Cooper and end this madness. A couple of Pittsburgh guys. A lot of speculative guys. This is where it really, really gets gross. Like, this is pretty gross. This is more sleepers. Gross. And if you follow me, gross. Don't do it. Don't freaking do it. I know they're much higher. They'll probably outproduce wide receiver 102, 103. Don't care. They suck. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Shawn. I'm on X at FarshyFF. I'm on YouTube at ShawnFF. Patreon's probably on the way. Working on it. It's really tight deadlines with the season. Probably focus more on in-season management. Thanks for listening, and let's win some championships. Have a great day.